So doing archery is quite straightforward. You hold the bow, you hold the string, pull string back, you let go. Nothing too hard about that. Now, of course, there are 100 things which are very specific, which you have to learn, and one of them, which sometimes goes under the radar, which we don't really teach, is how exactly do you hold the string? To clarify, this is talking specifically about the 3-finger Mediterranean draw, the method used in traditional Western archery and Olympic recurve archery. We're not talking about compound release aids or Asiatic thumb draws. And I really have to emphasize, I am demonstrating with bare fingers today for clarity's sake, but you should always be shooting with finger protection, a glove or a tab. Nerve damage can be very painful and irreparable. So today I'm showing, not shooting, but showing with bare fingers, but you should be using finger protection. So I want to start off by saying there is no one correct optimal distribution of your fingers. There are some general principles to keep in mind, and I'm here more to tell you to open your mind up on how to hold the string rather than telling you exactly what the best way is. There's a lot of self-exploration, discovery, so you decide what works for you. But there are a lot of resources which will point you in the kind of wrong direction, either from other people or from generic help websites. The thing I see often is this diagram where you have the fingers perfectly parallel like this, and it's held like this. Now, can you draw like this? The answer is yes, you can draw like this, absolutely. Let's do a proper shot here. We'll line up, shoot. Yeah, you can do it that way. Does it mean it's a good release? Not necessarily, because it isn't depicted as an effective way to draw the string. It's used because it's easy to draw. Just draw a few parallel lines and then that's your hook. It's there to indicate how to hold the string, but not exactly the right technique or position or weight distribution. So we're going to clarify further into that by talking about how deep your hook should be, as well as the distribution of weight across your fingers. So the first question is, how deep should your hook be? Now, by definition, a shallow hook is closer to your fingertips, whereas a deeper hook is closer to your joints. Now, as a rule of thumb, you don't want a shallow hook. Many people have this idea where if you only hold with the tip of your fingers, you're going to have a cleaner release because there's less wrapping around, less plucking. So by having a fingertip grip, you can just let it go like that. Paradoxically, that's not how it works. There are multiple problems with the shallow fingertip style hook. Number one is that it causes a lot of weight on the sensitive pads of your fingers. This can be very painful, especially if you're shooting without finger protection, but even with a glove or a tab, it puts a lot of weight onto the fleshy parts, which isn't really good at holding it. The second problem is that you don't really have control. Now again, you might think, I just have to let the string come off like that, minimal movement. But in reality, it comes off as a bit of a pluck motion because you can't really roll the fingers with the string. You end up just moving the fingers out of the way. So it's more of a sideways movement as the string comes past your fingertips. Not to mention the very obvious lack of strength, like your fingertips are not strong by themselves. So by having at least on your joint, you can wrap your joint around and put it on the bones in your fingers rather than purely on the fleshy bits. Remember, no muscles in your hand, it's all ligament, so you can't really make it stronger by holding it here. And as a result, when you draw it back, it might slip off your fingers. So it really betrays the confidence you have in your shot. You really want a confident, strong hook. In contrast, you also don't want a deep hook, that is a very deep hook. So we say the first joint is about right as a benchmark, but the second joint, the one that's close to your hand, that's too deep. You might think again, oh, deep hook, very strong grip, and yes, it's a strong grip, but there's excessive movement in the fingers when you try to release. So because it's so deep, and again, a lot of illustrations will show something like this because it's easy to draw fingertips and fingernails and parallel lines, but in reality, again, this is too deep. The release is going to be quite janky because your fingers have to come all the way around to release the string. So second joint is way too deep. So that leaves us with the first joint, which is roughly there. So that's roughly where you want your fingers to curl around the string. That gives us a balance between cleanliness of release as well as strength in your fingers. And the next question is, how exactly do you distribute weight on your fingertips? Again, with the obvious thing in mind, it might be equally spread across all 3 fingers. And again, you can't shoot like this. The reality though is that most people put far more weight on their top 2 fingers. As I said before, there's no one correct weight distribution. Some people might go for a fairly equal 30%, 40% and 30% on your fingers. So it's kind of equal. But like I said, the top 2 tend to be more favored by most archers. So it may be closer to a 40, 50 and 10. Again, exactly what it is doesn't matter, but the ring finger tends to hold very little weight, to the extent where some people actually only shoot with 2, or they have almost like 95% weight on 2, and the ring finger is mostly there as a balancing finger rather than a pulling finger. Regardless, for many people, the top 2 fingers do most of the work. So when drawing, most of the weight is held on the top 2 fingers, could be index, top and middle. And again, many people will change the weight as they draw. So maybe the top finger holds most of the weight as you draw, but the middle finger holds the weight. And again, with the ring finger being a balancing finger to maintain tension on the string, more so than actually pulling it back. And just to demonstrate one more time, again, my top 2 fingers are doing most of the work. My ring finger is just mostly holding the string in place. So we pull with the top 2 fingers, and at full draw, I feel the balance in the middle finger, and the ring finger is balancing the weight. Something else to consider is that you don't have to hold the fingers perpendicular to the string. So again, a lot of people see diagrams, everything is perfectly parallel and perpendicular, go here and then pull. And a lot of artists actually have a slightly slanted grip. So instead of holding it perpendicular like this, it might be more like this. So you see the string come across the joints like that. And more specifically, it may come across different joints. So when I shoot, I find myself doing this. I'll put the string on the first joint of my top finger, the index finger, past the first joint of the ring finger and the pad of the ring finger like this. So instead of being 1, 2, 3 together, it might be 1, 2 and 3 in that order. So therefore I've got a slightly different hook. And this is actually quite popular, especially for Olympic style recurve shooters who anchor quite low. It allows you to get the right angle of your hand. But you can still shoot it with a high anchor point. What ends up happening, instead of shooting straight like this, that can work really well. I shoot more like with the angled grip and pull it back either here or with the Olympic style draw with the jaw down here. Of course, this is all up for experimentation. You shoot what works best for you. So if you want to try different balance and different weight distributions, definitely try to do so. The point I want to make though is that you don't have to stick to a dogmatic 3-finger equal draw parallel. In fact, many archers veer away from that. So again, like we said at the beginning, let's still open up the things you could be doing with your hook rather than telling you exactly how to hook. It is based on what is most comfortable for you. There are some basic principles which all good hooks have, however. One key feature is having a flat hand as you draw. This is crucial because if you clench your hand and form knuckles, you're more prone to flicking the arrow off the string. So all hooks should have a flat hand, which is achieved by relaxing the wrist and allowing the string to pull your hand and stretch it out like that. So if you're clenching it or tensing your wrist, you're going to knock it. If you are relaxing it, you're going to have a straight draw. The second principle is generally try to keep your fingers parallel on the string. So this is more so if you're using a finger tab, but even using a glove. If you find yourself pinching the arrow and like squeezing your fingers together, that's usually a bad sign. You're putting pressure on the nock, which means you're going to affect the arrow. So when you're pulling, keep your fingers parallel. So when someone's watching you from the side, all 3 fingers should be pointing in the right direction. So front view with the high anchor might be like that. So your 3 fingers are parallel. And with the low chin anchor, the Olympic style, similar thing again, low anchor. You can see that all my fingers should be parallel. Now I'm not using a tab with a finger spacer obviously, so it's not perfect, and shorter bows will cause more finger pinch. So if that's the case, do be aware of where your fingers are. Smaller bows will squeeze together once you reach full draw. That's why finger spacers tend to be used for the Olympic recurves, to ensure that you are not squeezing the arrow. If you are using a finger tab, remember to squeeze the base of the tab, not the fingertips. You can still get a finger tab with a finger spacer and squeeze it, so be conscious of how you are holding it. And that's basically it. It's not a very complicated subject to cover, hence why this is a very short discussion, not much demonstration needed, but the point is to make you think about how you hold the string. If you're starting out, you might be taught a very basic rudimentary method where everything's balanced and equal. You might not even think about it. But as you're trying to get it exactly right and you're trying to advance in your archery, you may find yourself really figuring out what works best for you. So my question is, how do you figure out the best hook for your particular kind of archery? Post your comments and experiences below. Thank you all for watching, and hopefully we'll see you next time.